Hello and welcome to our Facebook Live. This is Mr. and Mrs. and we come at you every week with interesting marriage conversations, and tonight is no exception. In fact, we're saying tonight, but in essence, it's actually last night because this is like a premiere video that we did last night. Unfortunately, we encountered some glitches. Carl's phone, our guest's phone, Carl, overheated while we were in the middle of doing our opening, and so we kind of lost them for a second. And then when they came back, time had moved, and so quite a lot of people who wanted to connect weren't able to connect. So we thought we would put the videos back together again and then re-upload them as a premiere. So this is the actual premiere. So please, watch. You can still continue to comment. You can still continue to like the video. We had a fantastic conversation and we want to share it with you. So yeah.
We really had an amazing time with Carl and Nelsy, and learned just what it is like to be a couple in the spotlight, the different challenges that they've faced and how they've managed to continue to stay together. And I liked some of the tips that they were sharing, like be intentional about being in a confined space together as a husband and wife, because you need that time to be able to bond. So we picked up quite a lot of lessons from what they shared from their life, and also some of the struggles that they faced in their marriage, and just how they were able to navigate through those challenges. So take notes, because there's really some profound lessons in
Absolutely. So yeah, again, we had so much fun. So here's the video. We hope you enjoyed, and remember, just share the link. Please do share the link. Click on share and share it on your timeline so that as many married couples can also watch it with you during this time. And so yeah, hope you enjoy.
So Carl, Nelsy, thank you so much, guys, for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, guys.
So just a little bit of a confession, right? So we were talking about other things in the inbox, and then I just said randomly, you know what, while I've got your attention, why don't we do a Facebook Live together, right? And then in my head, I already knew what I wanted us to talk about. It was already laid out, and I knew what we wanted to talk about. Then I said, you know what, let me do a little bit of reading, because I thought I knew you, right? And I thought, let me do a bit of reading first. Then I read up and I was like, oh my goodness, there's a whole lot on you, man. Like, you guys have lived several lifetimes. So I thought, forget the original topic. This time, let's just invite you and let's just talk and let's just see how far we can take this, because there's just so much. You guys have so much going on. So eventually we may be able to get to the original topic that we wanted to talk about, but we don't know. But thank you so much for agreeing and for saying yes. And I remember telling Ivy that Carl said yes, and she was like, did he tell Nelsy?
Sometimes we agree to things before, like, you realize after that you haven't run it past it, but there's this pre sort of agreement on agreeing on things that you can do within context.
Wow. So guys, tell us. Okay, first of all, I was really excited to see your pictures of your wedding. I was like, oh my gosh, this is it.
Bahamas, baby.
Wow.
Like, who does that?
Yeah.
We do. Trying to avoid a very expensive wedding.
If you meet us, we don't like drama. We don't like drama. Like, I've filmed lots of weddings, and
I worked in hotels, so I did lots of weddings too.
And couples are not happy on their wedding day. After all
Yes.
the planning, they're not happy. And like, you get into the bedroom and you're too tired to do anything. And I didn't want that. I didn't want that to be my destiny. I was like, we're gonna do a 27-minute item, and we'll go straight to the ship. But she had a shift, so.
But I was tired. I don't know why he's acting as though it changed.
Oh my goodness. So maybe just to take you guys back, how did you meet, and like, what was it about each other that you saw and you felt, you know what, she's the one, or he's the one?
Okay, so I usually tell this story because it's incorrect from Nelsy's perspective.
Oh my God.
So I was married at the time and going through a divorce, and I was put into a friend zone for 8 years because I was trying to get married to someone else at that time who thought I was better placed to be with Nelsy. Nelsy was good friends with us. Eventually broke up with the person I wanted to marry, who wasn't my first wife. And then after about 8 years, my divorce came through. Then I said to Nelsy, hey, what's up? I'm divorced now. And then we went for rugby and we had a picnic. And then that's how we hooked up. And that's the true story.
Can you see my face?
I know.
Even I'm like, it sounds terrible.
I think let's let Nelsy tell this story. I think she may. I don't know. I think
You know,
she might just be. She may have a little bit more insights. Yeah.
exactly. So, I mean, this guy here, I'm just joking. No, you know what? Okay, it is true, Shatara. So, like, when I first met Carl, I just really thought it was funny. Then the first thing we were having dinner, like a group of us at work, was I was like, his company, the advertising company, used to do work for my company. So, and then we became friends. So we're having dinner, and then he says to me, oh, I'm trying to go through a divorce. And I liked him. But then when he told me about, hey, I'm trying to get a divorce, I'm like, Sha, me, I work in hotels. Me, I know this story. I've heard this story of, hey, I'm trying to divorce. So, you know what? Sad. That's what he's calling the friend zone for 8 years.
Oh, okay.
So we were just, you see what I mean? Like, I was just principled. I was just like, nah, So, but everything else in between, we were friends, and he claimed, and he used to be like, I love you, I miss you. But I really didn't notice because me, I just was busy. I was just really busy.
Yeah, but thank God to Zuckerberg. She saw all the messages I used to sign off, right?
You used to sign up, I love you.
She was like, no, you're lying. You didn't have feelings for me. I was like, go check your inbox.
You used to sign off, I love you every time.
For sure, 8 years.
But I didn't know. I didn't like, okay, I sometimes am. I wasn't very clued up when guys liked me. So I just thought he's a nice guy. It was very hard for me growing up. So, but then the rest is true. We not hooked up. We just met again later on.
Yeah.
Like 8 years later. And when we were both back in Zimbabwe, and he says, let's go for a picnic, rugby, went for rugby, did a picnic. And then I just said to him, dude, what do you want?
Yeah, what's
I
your
literally,
plan?
Like, what do you want? No.
I literally 50 text messages later, because remember,
We were
you
chatting.
used to get those data bundles with the 20 SMSs,
Yeah.
and it was like for $1. So, and then it became 25 for $1.
Yeah, it was like 25.
So we would text back and
back
forth.
and forth, yeah.
And then when you run out of text messages, the last text message had to have an asterisk, which meant I miss you or I'm thinking of you or whatever.
But we're still friends. Eh?
So eventually now I remembered I was down to my last 2 SMSs, and then she asked,
What do you want?
exactly what do you want? And then I had to write
Oh,
an
and get 2
application.
SMSs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
left. Yeah, 2 SMSs, and then that night, if I didn't tell her what I wanted,
It was gone.
it was gone. So I had to make an application. I said, candidate 250579 is requesting permission to be with you for the rest of your life.
It was cute.
my
And
It was cheesy.
it was very cheesy. And then she, no, it wasn't. This was just to date. But we had
Oh,
already,
just to date. Oh, no.
yeah.
I
But
was like, he's my boy. He's my people.
but the funny thing about Nelsy and I, we were already discussing like
Marriage.
marriage things. Like,
No, but in the context of us being, I thought it was we were discussing in the context of, if you get married to someone, what do you want?
Hypothetically speaking.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
One of those.
So even when I said to him, what do you want? Because I had come from it wasn't even a long relationship, but it was long for me. And I had planned to leave the country and go study like French, in France type thing. So I wasn't really looking for a relationship type thing. So when I said to him, what do you want? Because I was like, hey, we've been talking with this guy for hours, and he's not tuning me. And I don't want this business of guys, because we grew up in an era where guys never really said what they wanted, was assumed that everyone knows. I've just always been a person, I need you to tell me what you want.
Right.
So that's why I said to you, dude, what do you want, And when he said that, I said to him, let me go pray about it.
Were you actually praying?
You know what? I did, But it wasn't like I went and, Tanya or anything like that. I went back home because I was in Harare at the time. I went back home to Bulawayo and I used to keep a journal. Usual church girls journals about, hey, Lord, my future husband. So I remember I went back and read my journal. It was literally that simple. And there was a request I'd made to God. I showed him the journal when I saw him again. And it was, Lord, I really want a guy with a good sense of humor. And it all, and
you got
so I'm telling you, and then God just like,
So what's funny? What
give
people
it to
don't.
you, my child.
Hey,
So what people don't know is that like our relationship literally kick-started everything we're doing. Like I'll give an example. I wasn't a comedian when we met.
No.
And she was going back to the ship. And she kept worrying, like, if we're going to be together, how is this going to work? And I remember saying to her, like jokingly, maybe I'm going to find a job that allows me to travel. So like literally the business plan for my comedy career was about how am I going to see Nelsy? Like it was, I had to start a career that was going to take me to the US or like allow us to travel because Nelsy likes things. So Nelsy was like, I want to travel. I want to see the world. I want to eat this. I want to eat that.
Because
and I was like, there is no way I am doing that as a graphic designer. Maybe as a comedian, I can do this. And so literally I had to write a business plan on how we were going to have this life of traveling to different countries and so on. Because
you know what? But you know something? Carl always makes it out like he was, But what I loved about Carl, he talked about what is that thing, whatever. So apart from the humor thing, which I'd asked God for, what I liked was I just was at a stage in my life where I really wanted pragmatism. Between the two of us, I think he's more romantic than me. And I love pragmatism. So he gives me, he's very practical with me and he's very clear. So I think I really wanted that at that stage in my life. I didn't want flowers. I just needed someone who knows what they want.
Yeah.
So at what point did you become a comedian? Because you were saying before then, so you were trying to plan and to come up with a plan for her. So at what stage did that come about?
It was
so what happened was like we hooked up earlier in the year, right? And so from that time, I think I remembered when Tarone Gitare asked me to come to come and perform at an acoustic night. And then they were like, oh, you could really do this comedy thing. And this was, I think, maybe about 3 months into us sort of dating. This is when I was like, okay, I think this is the thing. I can literally turn this into an actual business. Now, my deadline, Nelsy was supposed to be going off to the
April?
US.
I know.
When was it? No, it was the next year.
It was the next year.
The following year.
Yeah.
So I had a limited amount of time.
May,
One,
June, July, to December.
to be an established comedian, to be the best comedian, and to be an international comedian. I had a short amount of time to do this. I mean, I literally was under pressure.
Not for me.
To the extent that when we did big announcement, I couldn't afford a ring or anything. And so I planned this big show to propose to Nelsy. Because, so Nelsy is busy planning this show, not knowing it's called a big announcement for a reason. Like she's
going to be a big announcement.
Exactly. She's planning it from August. That's why, like, between the two of us, like, I'm the romantic, but Nelsy would never know. Like, you can plan something in front of Nelsy, she won't know. Like, literally, you can, she won't see it. She doesn't, like, she won't see it.
But I don't like surprises.
She even had the script. In the script, it says, call Nelsy to the stage. On the script.
So, Nelsy, what did you think you were going to do?
No, you know what? I thought it was like his big coming out comedy show. So that's what I thought the big announcement was. Right. And I had decided early on when he started comedy that I didn't want to listen to his script or his sets like privately. I wanted to experience them with the audience. So I never got involved when he was doing his scripts or he's writing his jokes. So even when I was planning, I never looked, and it never crossed my mind to look at the script. Not even Kawan. All I knew, We're setting up the stage. We've got tickets to sell. We've got people. I didn't even bath that day. I'm not about gays, you know? And I was so upset because I had a whole dress, but we had been working from 2 a.m. the night before, setting up and rehearsing. And by the time 6 o'clock came, I was just like, you know what, I'll bath after the show. And then he calls me up, and all I could think about was, the spotlight is shining on my bum, and I don't know. It was just a mess.
Then he goes there, and this guy drops on his knee and says, "Will you marry me?" Whoa, how? What went through in your mind?
Like I'm telling you, all I could think about is the spotlight that was on me, and I was like, I haven't bathed. And I'm like, dude, at least you could have told me. You know? So I was unbathed, and it was funny because I was sitting next to a friend of mine, and so as Carl was doing the whole set, and he came and he went on his knees on stage, I just kept saying, "Hey, I don't know this joke. This joke is it's new. It's a new joke." So my friend was like, "Iwe, he's proposing." So it took me like a minute. It took me a minute. That's why I told you I'm so slow. My poor husband. I'm so slow, bruh. It took me a minute. Someone had to push me and say, "Iwe, no, this is a proposal that's happening here." Yeah, I just thought it was a joke. I was like, "Oh, this is a new joke. I haven't seen this set. Where's this one going?"
So now the guy proposes, and obviously now you're making marriage plans. Did it ever dawn on you, or did you ever think about it? Because previously we were talking about the whole divorce experience. Were you ever worried about it to say, okay, there was this divorce and now marrying this guy, what's going to happen? Am I going to be secure and all that? Because I know, for some people, it can become something like a scary thought to think this guy was married before. Are we going to be okay?
Yeah, so the lucky thing about us was that leading up to the big announcement, we had some very intense conversations. Yeah. I mean, like, you know, one of the things I always say is like, dating is almost practice for divorce. You're doing non-marriage things when you're dating. Like when you eat, you don't eat because you're hungry. You eat because you're trying to impress her with the things that you order, and she's trying to impress. Both of you are being irresponsible with your finances at that particular point. So dating is like it's a silly concept. Yeah, but we didn't. So when we were dating, we didn't have that. We ate when we were hungry. We linked up to work on our. We were building our dreams before I proposed. We were discussing what you know. Ironically, we were discussing things like, what if we don't have kids? Like, for example, I can't have kids. Really? And incidentally, it's a discussion we had before. I wasn't aware of it. We only became aware when we were now, after some time that, we've been unable to have kids and I can't have kids. But these discussions that we had were being very frank about things to say, would we consider adoption? How many kids would we have? Where do we want to live? One of the things that was very important for us is that we wanted to spend time together. We didn't want this person to go to work and come back and lose all this time. And this is why we had to work together. As in, literally, what role could Nelsy play in my career? So it was this process of training her to be my manager. So like in the beginning, people didn't realize this is what was going on. Like I was managing myself, but Nelsy was the face. And then soon it became a rotation where Nelsy now knew everything that she needed to know. And now she was fully managing. But nobody noticed that transition happening. And it was very important for us to fight it out. We fought so much in public. We fought so much in private. It was really bad. But the one thing that we had in our relationship was that this was for keeps. So it didn't matter how bad the fight was. This was a fight to resolve, not a fight to split. So once we had the confidence, we could be honest with each other. Most times when you're dating, you don't fight with the chick, or the chick doesn't fight with you because you don't know if you're going to break up. But if you have the security at the back of your mind, the fight is different. It becomes more honest. You can now tell the person, I don't like it.
Wow. So is that how you were able to talk about your previous relationship and how that could probably affect you if it would in any way?
Yeah, luckily, I used to tell Nelsy about all my girlfriends.
I knew all of
I think that's where it started.
I knew all
she was a big friend. Yeah.
I know all the stories. I think you know all my stories as well.
Yeah.
Hey, sometimes you forget the stories. Like, hey, that's one of those exes I was telling you about. so, so, but I think like you asked the question about his previous divorce, and not to be blasé, but honestly, it was a very, when I say brief conversation, it was the first conversation we had before we started dating, where I'm getting a divorce. Then when we met up again, it was I'm divorced now. And then I knew about his ex-wife. I've been spoken to a couple of times. Where it's another story, but it never crossed my mind. And I think it's also because we come from families that were divorced and remarried.
Yeah.
Okay.
Both our parents are divorced and remarried. And the nice thing as well is that we've also lived and seen people who've had long marriages. God has been really faithful with us to keep us amongst people who've had long marriages, with children, without children. So we've had really good examples around us of people who've had the marriages. So the one thing we did was, when we first started dating, like Carl was saying, the biggest fear we both had underlining was, whenever we were in relationships, when we had a fight, my relationships always ended when I finally put my foot down. So I never used to say anything. Same thing, I think, with him, where if a fight always meant a breakup. So
today we were just joking about it. So I had this ex who, like, on the first date or whatever, she came to the office, and then on her way home, she was pissed off that I didn't take her to the combis. So she called me. She called me and pretended she was being robbed or something on the phone, like screaming, whatever, right? And then she says, I just wanted to teach you a lesson because you didn't take me to the combi stop. I hung up the phone, breakup done. Me, no drama. I didn't. End of story.
So I think it was just that we just knew. So we actually made a verbal promise to each other, and we said, and this was when we were so young and naive. Fights don't mean breakups. So we had to keep each other accountable.
So like you verbalized that.
Yeah, we told each other that a fight doesn't mean a divorce. Divorce, iguva chairo type thing.
But this is the problem. Like when you're, this is the problem. Like inherently when you're dating. And I'm not saying dating is a bad thing, but I think you need to refocus your priorities when you're actually dating.
Say what you want.
Like don't be afraid to say what you want out of life. Don't be afraid to plan things together. Don't be afraid to do projects together. Don't be afraid to do the things that you're going to need when you're married. Stop doing the things that don't make sense, like to say you didn't call 10 times. Maybe you didn't call 10 times because
that's not data.
You didn't have data. So are you planning your finances?
I don't know. And you know what I mean? Like we're saying that the one thing, and from a woman's perspective, something that I always tell them I really appreciate about my relationship and when we start out with Carl. A man just needs to be a man. And I know it sounds simple, but it's not always the case. I didn't want a scenario. What I loved about him is that I never had to ask Carl, where are we with our relationship? Or apart from the what do you want part, but you know what I mean? Like, he just always, he was just a guy and I could be a girl. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know it sounds really old and I don't know how else to explain it. So that really helped me a lot.
Like I get it, but like maybe how then did he translate that into marriage? How does it work when it's in marriage? Now, what does it mean when it's in marriage?
So okay, I'll answer part, but the rest you will do it as well. There's a part. So in marriage, it's the beginnings. Hey, it all starts with the beginnings. It's not when you're in marriage. It's the pre-marriage part. Because when you're in marriage, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we communicated so much; it was just ridiculous, and we were so open. And I'm not saying there are no surprises in marriage, but we're so open that the foundation that we laid when we were getting to know each other and dating or whatever you want to call it, it was just lots of conversation. Like, I was free to say, this is what I want to do. I want to see the world. I want to travel. And he did not seem intimidated. If he was, he never showed it. And I think I appreciated that as a woman, I think I want to be able to say, Run downtown, you know, I want to be able to say, you know, and not feel like, oh my gosh, I can't tell him because if I tell him, maybe he will move away or you'll be intimidated. You know that whole story as women, don't tell men what you want because you'll be intimidated and that sort of a thing. So he really allowed me that space to be really open about what I wanted to do. And even though he tells me now, later on in life, that you, baby, Wakanti won't say that type thing, you know? Like, you know, I was like, geez, what am I going to do? But I appreciated his calmness. And I think that's what men need to be. You just need to be a man. This is what I really want. Take it in and allow it to speak, because that's the biggest problem. Most women, we don't want to say what we really want when we're dating. But the reaction and losing the person. Yeah.
I think also the important thing, or what I've learned in this marriage, marriage, you've got two people and there's two very distinct roles, right? In a lot of marriages, and it's not to say in all of them that's what happens, but one of you has a clear picture of the kind of life you want to have, and the other one has a clear picture of how to get it.
To get there.
Now it doesn't follow that the person who knows what you want is the woman or the man. So like, for example, I in my mind, I knew I had an execution plan of whatever she said. I had no vision for the marriage. I had no vision. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know what the curtains look like. I didn't know what the kids look like. I didn't know what the schools. I didn't know any of these things. All I knew is that if she presented to me an issue, which is to say we must eat at 3 o'clock, then I must know the level of preparation that needs to come to get us to eat at 3.
Wow.
And so the process follows that if I didn't know how to, then I would need to learn. But I needed to be honest with her to say, baby, and kuziva. And that's the main thing that like a lot of guys miss out, is that even if she says she wants this, it's okay as a guy to say, I don't know how to do it. But if you allow me to learn, I can execute it.
Wow.
So that there's a time period.
Doesn't that, because I know for women sometimes that you don't want to hear I don't know, because you are saying this is the person that's supposed to be leading me, this is the person that I'm supposed to be following. So if you're telling me that you don't know, then what am I following? So
no, so what so what you are essentially what you are saying is that, like, Nelsy has said a lot of things. Like, for example, we want to have a house by the lake, so she could be watching a movie and it'll be like, oh, I want a house by the lake. So for me, I'm honest with Nelsy and I'll say, okay, we've got 3,000 Zim dollars in our bank account. This is where we are today. I have a plan. I have a plan to get us to the house on the lake. So the first example was, we need to move out of the house we're renting and we're going to live in a tent. Then we're going to build a bus. Then we're going to move to a rural piece of land. Then we're going to sell it. Then we're going to buy a farm. Then we're going to move to a house on the lake.
Hold on. Let's take a step back.
Rewind.
Yeah.
So how did that conversation come about? Because I'm imagining Simba telling me that we're moving out and we're going to stay where? In a bus?
In a tent.
In a tent?
Yeah.
How did that come about?
All right, so there's my version, as always, and there's Carl's version. So I will start with my version, because everyone's always so curious about me and how I reacted to this whole thing.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, I don't know, okay, let me start. When it comes to our roles with Carl and I, right? I think one thing him and I are together with is we dream the same, if that makes sense. So we've discussed, we've dreamt together, we've discussed life that we want. There are things that we want that we talk about. We watch certain things because we want to aspire for certain things. Does that make sense? So let's put that aside and add that there. So the other thing was when we separated our roles, in terms of our work and stuff like that. Like, I'm having to learn about money, especially areas of money. So we fast forward our marriage, and I handle our finances. Like, I would be the one who pays the bills, who does the, who handles our finances. Carl brings in the bank and I handle finances, right?
Okay.
So we were done paying rent. It is hard when you're watching money just go like this.
Just
And
go out,
like
yeah.
and we love to travel and do all these things, and it just wasn't making sense. But here's the truth of the matter: is when Carl then explained, it took him years, it took him years to sort of break me down.
To tire
me to the point when he says we're moving to a tent. My only fear was literally the fear of change, which is normal. Even if you move from a good place to a bad place or a bad place to a good place, change is just always hard. I've always found change difficult, but I've always thought if he's solid and if he's clear, I will go. If you tell me you'll go to no end.
So, Carl, you were persistent. You just didn't wake up one morning and say, we're moving in a tent.
No. He's not like that. No.
Yeah, so the main thing here is it's about the plan of execution, right? And what we wanted to achieve. There's certain things that I for example, for Nelsy to allow me to make these kinds of plans and ideas, I had to prove first. Like I literally did a PowerPoint presentation with an organogram of how we were getting from point A to point B. It was very clear.
I need that.
It was very clear. We were in year 3 going to travel around the world. In year 5, we're going to be running our own establishment. In year 10, we're going to be doing this. These things had to be planned out. And I had to be dependable to make sure that these things, she's like a board member. And so I, as a CEO, I have to report to the board to say, here's where we are.
Come on.
So
Because
you Carl.
I know.
So you make a presentation to your wife to say, this is what we're... Okay. Didn't you feel like, honestly, this is a silly idea? Because honestly, it's not a normal thing to do, to say we're going to live in a tent. So didn't you feel like I am selling, even though I believe it, but she's probably going to think this is a silly idea. And, if she doesn't take it, then I'm going to force it down her throat because I'm the man, I'm the husband here.
Yeah. So look at it this way. We make a calculation, 248,000 US dollars. That is what we have spent on rent.
You wears me down by expenditure.
Right? That's the first one. We moved to Victoria Falls and we're going to start a business where we're renting out tents. People are going to stay in our tents and we'll make 50 US dollars per night on the tents.
Okay.
But the only way they're going to believe that the tents can stay, you could stay in the tents is if we also stayed in a tent, as an example.
Okay.
That's the first one. Number 2, we're not going in the bush. We are right in the center of town in an actual facility with water, electricity, internet, all of the things that you want.
Right.
We're not going to be struggling. But most importantly, we ended up going on tour more times than we slept in a tent.
Because with more money.
On her birthday, she spent a month in Cape Town.
With more money saved.
If that was not proof that the plan worked, I don't know what else was. Because for us to stay in a hotel for a month in Cape Town, doing all the things she wanted to do, ever, so the issue was, at each point, you can't ask her to come on board if you're not going to prove. If you're not at certain points going to say, here are the short-term wins, here are the medium-term wins, and here's the long-term win. Because right now,
you can't
on
ask
Monday,
her to come on board if you're not going to prove. Hey,
yes,
because
Do you know what?
Because think about it, on Monday, we are going to move onto our own piece of land. If that's not proof enough, because when we said we're moving from a tent, I put it on, the reason why I put it on Facebook is to show my wife that I am not going to hide. If I embarrass you, it's out in public.
Hey.
I am willing to put my neck on the line and tell people, this is my career on the line. I know the papers are going to write about it, but this is how much I believe that this plan works. If I was about self-preservation, I would pretend and continue paying $750, $1,000 US dollars per month for rent, just for show. But I know at the end of the day, my wife sees my nakedness. And for me, I can't impress her by losing money in that manner. But what I can do is I can prove to her by doing what we've done. Like if you look in our bus right now, she's the coffee machine that she wants, the refrigerator, the stove, the computer, the Wi-Fi. It's all there, but it's in a bus.
Okay, so guys, so this is it. You know, when we're reading up on you guys, you have traveled a lot. You've been on big platforms and you're quite exposed and all that. So when the world sees you, or when we see you, we expect to see you live in a certain way. So we expect you to be living in a certain kind of a house because of what we have seen. So how do you manage that pressure from people? You know, when people say, you know, this is what you're doing, so this is the standard where you should be living, or the things that you should be doing. How do you manage that pressure?
Do you know what? Very early on, Carl and I, from the time we were dating to how we got married to doing a lot of things, and it's not to be rebellious. We just always dance to our own beat from day one. So, in all honesty, and not to be brash, we don't care what people expect. I'll tell you why. It's because we learned very early on that people's expectations don't put food on your table. People's expectations don't create the foundation in our marriage that we need. Family, friends, the whole works. So because we've understood that and gone through our own trials, our own tribulations, our own problems, you realize in life, you literally, you know, when they say leave and give, you guys are married, you know this. When the chips are down, do you know what I mean? So we realized that very early on. People may look at it as rebellion, but really, we tried the conventional way, it just didn't work, and then we just kind of realized, oh, but why are we trying to do things for others?
No, here's a classic example. When we lived in Harare, I could, and I'm not exaggerating, on any weekend, I'd have 40 people in my house. I'll be cooking for 40 people. Because of expectation. It's Carl's house. He can afford it. And for sure,
the whole lifestyle.
I can afford it. But 40 people in my house. And you know what's funny? Is that these people were not eating as well as they were trying to allude to in my house. They were eating worse. So they were trying to extend this lifestyle for me to fund it. And so when the first thing that we did is we moved out of Harare. We moved to Kadoma. We cut ourselves off because we said ultimately at the end of the day, when we were, my wife had this funny thing where if people came to our house, right, because we love married couples, because we identify with each other's struggles. But people would come with their girlfriends to our house or whatever. And my wife had this thing where after people have been eating in my house, all those girlfriends who are trying to impress their guys, she'd make them do the dishes. Yeah, because the reason she'll be like, they're here or like, they must wash the dishes and clean up. Because sometimes people leave a house in a mess and they wouldn't care.
And then I have to clean up.
But there's two ways of making money in life: increase your revenue or reduce your costs. And so for us, we worked very well on doing that, is to make sure that we don't worry about and it's coming to terms with that reality.
Yeah, you have to be honest.
Where you realize, like for me, when we moved out of our house, I told Nelsy that this wasn't sustainable. And so when we moved, think about it, we moved into isolation. We moved to a place where we had no human contact. And this happened a year before COVID.
Oh.
Imagine if I...
So for you guys, how, because I like the way that you said you did a whole presentation to try and convince your wife that this is what we're going to do, and it sounds like you succeeded in, you know, convincing her and even meeting the targets that you had set for yourself. Have you had situations where you had a clear map, a clear plan, and then it fell through and it didn't happen? And how did you manage that?
I think I fail
all the time.
I fail all the time.
We fail all the time. Not him. We fail all the time. That's what I wanted to say. Is
we're just honest about it. Like we're honest. We're like, that didn't work.
Yeah. I think that's the process. You know what? The plan. You know, like life. Okay, there's life. There's what you plan in life and what you commit to God and say, this is what we'd love to do in life. Ideally, we would have loved to gotten married. You know, or we would have a trust fund of $100,000. We'd have Minda everywhere. We'd have our how many kids? 3 kids, 4 kids. You know. So I think the plan was just. I think in God's grace, God is so gracious like that when you start off in life and in marriage, is that He gives you something to build on.
Yeah.
Right? But in building, we believe there has to be some level of grace and flexibility and adaptability, because that's what life is. It's never, you know, Carl always says it to me. He's like, you know, the woman, like the man I married, the man he was, what I thought was cute and what I liked when we first met is so different to what I love about him today.
Right.
It's so different. I don't even think that was the person. I was like, whoo, okay, you know. But like what I love about him today is so different, and it's also because they say there's the person you marry that you think you've married, then there's the person you become because you're married to that person, and then there's the actual reality of the person you are. And you guys know how marriage is such a mirror. It's such a mirror. I mean, every pimple, every flaw, every zit, it's painful. You know what I mean? It's painful. And so I think even in the presentation was what I needed, what God knew I needed at that point to be able to make that second decision to be with Carl. But over the time and over the years and everything else, what I've loved and what we've discovered about each other and what we've discovered about what we like about life has been something completely different. So I think the biggest thing for us has been learning to adapt. I've had to learn to adapt. Carl is a little more flexible than I am, but being around him, I've had to learn to adapt. And I think also him being around me, he realized some areas where I'm rigid. He steps up and like, oh, you got that, you know. So it's reciprocal. So I think it's not the plan. It's not the only thing. It's adapting to life and circumstances. And we've had, like, you know, I'll call it tragedy. We've had tragedies. You know, we had a what do you call it? A miscarriage. And it's something you deal with. You don't realize how you're gonna deal with it until you have it. You know what I mean? You don't know what's gonna happen. We've had to deal with illness. You know, we've had to deal with, like you're saying, where we've had sometimes when we've gone to business ventures and things didn't work out the way we wanted. We've lost money, owed money. We've guys. so it works. So it's an ongoing, but it's success and failures, but they all make you who you are. Yeah.
That's so good. I mean, okay, so now tell us about your house, right? Okay, like how do you handle fights, for example? Because like if we fight, I mean, I can go out to another room and just chill.
Hey, lucky people, eh?
Now, you guys maybe just describe your current abode right now, so that people just get to really understand. Because my options they're limited. Eh?
Yeah, no, they're very limited. I you know, like being in this confined environment, and it's funny because the preparation we have had. I always say, like, Nelsy and I, when the chips are down, we are probably 2 of the most formidable people you have ever seen in your life. I mean, I would say approach at your own risk. There's no powerful set of people than when we are on crunch time. Wow. Where we're easily split apart is actually when things are going well, when we've got the space. In fact, I find in our marriage we've been less happy when we've been in bigger houses.
Yeah.
You know, because it's so easy. It's so easy. Like, I know we talk about having kids, and one thing that we talk about when we say we're having kids, they're all going to share the same room. Reason being, it's how you learn. We grew up learning to share a bed. You know, like when you look at the generations, they're so different now. When someone can just, DSTV, when you can say, oh, let me go to the other room and just watch what I want.
Yeah. Watch something else. Yeah.
Yeah. It takes it chips. It's little things. They just chip away. They chip away. Well, before you know it, you're now eating dinner separately. You're now saying, oh, let me just finish some work. It chips away. It just chips away. So I always talk about, like, as a couple, you always have to have these habits that you do together.
Oh, yeah.
And one of them is being in confined spaces. Like, you literally have to put a budget of confined spaces. So you get used to it. You have to get used to it. Like, for example, my wife and I, before we moved into the bus, our confined space used to be the bath. So we used to bath together. But because of, every day. Do you know how difficult it is to argue with a naked person? I mean, it's weird. It's very awkward. Like, you become more forgiving. You can't. Yeah. Put in the question, you know. I want a mangazako, whatever, right? So because we always think the intimacy is going to be sexual, and sometimes you can stray on that intimacy. So you have to force feed the being compact. And for us, this project, remember, it's temporary. This project is temporary, but it's designed to bring us together because we're about to move to a bigger space. Because once we're now in a bigger space, we are now going to have an upstairs loft. We're going to have a basement. We're going to have a garden, a study, and those kind of things. And those things are going to chip away. You always have to find that thing that brings you together, either like karaoke on Saturdays or movie night on this day. But you have to budget being locked up together. It's the difference between, if you look at, and I don't like to sound political, but the difference between ZANU-PF and MDC, for example, is that ZANU-PF were locked up and confined together. They are harder to break than people who weren't. So it's just like a marriage. You have to be, I call it the ruling party, because opposition out there, kuna opposition trying to break that union apart. So you have to know, Kuti, right now we are locked up in prison. We're political detainees together.
You know what? Can I tell you this one thing we did? So apart from we work together, okay, so the one thing is obviously we work together, so that already is something else. So the one time we took some work where we were in Manapools at a safari camp for 1 month, 1 month, no cell phone, no internet, nothing. But it was good because it's just that, well, we've been used to being together all the time, actually. We're so used to it. But we did 1 month in a safari camp where we were doing some work and stuff like that. And because we were both scared, you know, out in the boondoos, we used to go to the I remember that is now like the epitome of us being so close. Tying our toilet, you know, telling
we can't
1, 2, 3, better, Time now, you know.
And people don't know when you're in the bush, sound travels fast, but so does smell. And you brings you closer together.
So Carl would be standing by the tent, watching me by the toilet. Something must be going to the toilet. Then we swim. Then no God. I'm telling you, because we're out in the wild.
Until this day.
We
go to the toilet together.
So now
all
we
the
call
time.
each other to shout. No, toilet, like, because we use the bathroom by the campsite. So we go out together. It's funny even during the day. Sometimes we forget it's during the day. We're so old, like such old people. But the funniest part, because we spent this 1 month doing this together, the first time we came back to civilization, we went for a gig in South Africa. So we're staying in a hotel room. So this is soon after all of that. So I went out to the hotel room. So I woke up, I wanted to use the bathroom. I woke him up like, do you want to go to the toilet? But I'm in the hotel room. And I was like, no, she's
So guys, what we're hearing a lot from you guys is you spend so much time together and you make the most of it. Do you ever create time apart? Because I also hear that it's good for couples to also have that, that alone time. So how
Yes.
do you even incorporate it in your marriage?
It's weird. I think right now, currently, we are just in the phase that we've got this huge goal that we're trying to get, right?
Yeah.
So it's forced us. Imagine you're there fighting a big animal. So you're more likely to huddle together. I find what brings us together is the sheer scale of what we're trying to do. So each time, instead of for example, we find like when we've achieved something, that's when we start to sort of drift and start doing our own thing or whatever. Which is why it's always important for me to keep picking these projects, like these big goals, because it makes us so vulnerable. I mean, imagine what it's like when, like, Nelsy and I were trying to like build this bus. We didn't know how to do this. We had to watch YouTube videos every day together. So it meant we weren't watching Netflix. Like, even when we were watching a movie, we'd end up going back to YouTube to watch something specific to do with the bus. And now we're watching something specific to do with what you call it.
So you did not get anyone like those fabricators come and
He did
this
himself.
all by yourself. You laid in all by yourself.
Yeah.
Everything.
I painted, but
Wow. So that's I love what you said, that that you constantly have to have these big projects that you're doing to always get you close together, because the when you achieve a goal, that's when you find yourself drifting apart. But when you're focused on something that you're pushing for, you draw closer together. That's so good.
Yeah.
But you know what? Don't get us wrong. We do get our own time. Like, Carl loves to golf when he can, and then I love to spend girl time. Talking about so
Okay.
So when I do get up to, I've got some really good friends. Just that because we travel a lot, sometimes we're never in the same town. So we do allow ourselves those things to do. But like he's saying, we're so focused on so many things. And the nice thing about us is that he really is my friend. Not even joke time, but like, we joke. I actually enjoy his company.
Dude, literally, Nelsy will be like, "Ew, like literally, like."
I remember actually saying the other day. I think we actually had.
So we did a show. Yeah, we did a show a couple of weeks ago where we're saying, married not blind or married blind. So like, I'm the one I
I tried to pretend I didn't quite see it initially,
No.
but eventually I'm like, oh, I haven't seen it.
I thought you'd pretend and be like, no, Chi.
No. I wouldn't if he's pretending, because you know what? He's married, he's not dead.
Yeah.
Okay, so
We are married, that's you're not dead.
we've heard the fun bits, okay, from your relationship. But what has been the toughest experience for you guys as a couple?
I think one of the things is that we, like, generally people think we get along all the time. I think the hardest thing is the fights, is in the sense that, like, we're fighting better. Like, you get better at fighting, but it doesn't.
It's not nice.
Yeah, it's just not nice. It's just, we know it happens, and a lot of the times it's weird because we fight about something, and then weirdly I'll take on her perspective and execute whatever it is that I was arguing against. Like, I literally we fight, and then I literally become her, or she becomes me.
Or I fight with him about something, and then I turn around and I'm like, but sure, why am I upset? You know what I mean? Like, but it's been over time. You know what? I like he's saying that okay, so you'll fight. You know what? You'll fight, you'll disagree. And I remember in the beginning, it used to worry me so much, because I remember thinking, if we're fighting like this, how are we going to last? And this was like the first 2 years, 3 years in the marriage. When you really hate celebrating 3 years of marriage, because you're like, you're not old, you're not new, it's boring,
Yeah.
As you want to be celebrating 10, 15, those kind of thing.
Yeah.
So those first few years were so hard, okay? And Ipapa, you're like, I've known this man for close to 8-9 years. We were friends for 8 years prior to even dating. And even now, you're still learning and you're fighting and we're disagreeing. And so there were two things we had to, apart, remember that thing we said, the promise where a fight wasn't divorce? So that was really important.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is realizing that even as you're fighting, and even if sometimes you look at this person like, I really don't like you today, you realize deep down this person loves you. Not loves, but cares about you. That whatever they're doing for yourself. But it's a learning process, eh? It's a learning process. So Kudara, when we used to fight, hey, it would take days.
Silent treatment, guys. Silent treatment. I didn't know that silent treatment, when it was invented, it was designed to break prisoners of war. I didn't know that.
I didn't know
This
that
is the
either. I
one
didn't
thing
know
that women have mastered so well.
This guy's the only one so
Like-
tired now.
And you don't know how to get out of it, eh? Because
Yeah, it's awkward because, and you know, because we're so close, we're usually just the two of us. So now you see something funny, the first person you want to tell, Mumo Wakwan.
Yes.
But now you
Yes.
have this kind of defense. Now you have to be like, you know, like it's like so in the beginning, it really used to take days to come round. But in those days, you're so miserable, eh? It's so miserable.
Yeah.
And like now, our turnaround time, maybe you can answer that, but I believe our turnaround time is a bit better. It's a bit better compared to Kudara because, you know, but otherwise, the fights are they're always not nice to the heart.
But you'd be surprised what the challenge really is. The biggest challenge actually is that because we're public personas, like the support network is
it's very
non-existent.
limited. Yeah.
Because I can't share. Yeah, no,
you
I can't
go
talk to
and
my
tell
friends.
people about your
You know,
personal stuff.
Like
because
I've heard, even if I talk to someone, like they'll say, you know, besides those guys can't have kids, or those guys are not forgot to they're special, or you know that. So we're literally in isolation, and that's one of the hardest. It's one of the hardest things is to know that. But I think that's also what's made us formidable because ultimately, at the end of the
you
day,
have to resolve.
we now have to resolve because we know we're the only two people.
Right.
Yeah, because
Okay, so
it's like you're saying, airing dirty laundry. It's people don't realize that. I mean, look, social media is a mist with so many broken relationships, and it's not to say that's not normal. But do you know what I mean? We all know dealing with heartache and dealing with life, but having to deal with it on a public space is so hard. But at the same time, I don't think we have an obligation to try and tell people the intimacies of our relationship. That's none of anyone's business. Even if we weren't a public personality, it's no one's business. But that's the part that Carl said that the hardest part is finding confidence when it comes because sometimes maybe I need a female friend to tell me, you know, but Nelsy, you know, Panapaga, you know, and usually it's people who've been married for a while and stuff. So that has been really hard. And even for Carl, sometimes he needs another man to tell him, I know, Rosia, Panapa, Josh Panapa, you know, maybe you need to do this. So I think that's been the biggest challenge for us in our marriage, where you really want to be able to sit and talk to people, but talk to people who are honorable and trustworthy, regardless, even if you never talk to them again. Your issues are never out there in public because it's just a period in your life where you need counsel like anybody else. So that's one of the hardest parts, the fights. And the miscarriage was hard for us. It was really, really hard. But I think a lot more because I got a lot more support as a woman. Because that's natural. People think it's a woman's support. But I was very worried about Carl because men really get support.
Like,
You will explain it.
I had to deal with it on stage. I literally,
it happened when we were at a show.
But I had to play it out on stage. It's the only way I could talk about it. Because there's no one I could talk to. I couldn't talk about the fact that it didn't happen to my body, but there was a part of me that, like, you have to understand that it's easy for a person. It's easy for a person to come into your inbox and say, it's because you guys share too much. It's because you guys, you know, you share too much of what you're doing and whatever it is. And so, you know, for you have to share it. And so now also when you're talking about infertility, I've had to say this on stage because that's the only way. I literally have to write a joke about dealing with an issue. So initially it's difficult. Like I remember when when the miscarriage happened, because remember
We're on
I was a nurse in the UK. So that day I remembered my wife was spotting, and so she was in the bathroom, and I had 3 gigs I had to do
We're on tour in South Africa.
So the conundrum here was that my wife is having a miscarriage. She needs to go into hospital. If I don't do the gigs, I won't have the money because I've already spent the money to come.
Yeah.
So, and I've been booked because of the jokes I've been telling about how excited I am to be a father. So I had to still continue those jokes on stage. So I'm backstage in tears, get my 2 shots of whiskey onto stage, talk about how excited I am to be a dad, because I'm not prepared to talk about the fact that I'm not going to be a dad. And then I come back, I've done the gig, I've been paid, we go back, and then we have to do the DNC and all of that stuff. But even still, you still can't deal with that particular situation. So, you know, it's those kind of things. But then you realize that also maybe our lives are in a way there for people who are not dealing with it on a worse level than us. Because I then started noticing the power of me having sharing is that a lot of guys are in my inbox talking about, you know, Carl, you know, no one cares about me. You know, my wife has just had a miscarriage. All the relatives came for her. Everyone's just looking at me saying, listen, you know, you have to be strong. And they're breaking inside. They're broken men out there. They're broken men on an unbelievable level. I'm not saying there's nothing, I'm not, you know, from a woman's perspective, but I'm saying the broken men are causing more broken sort of societies and more broken, you know, sort of issues. Yeah.
So I think that was really hard for us. And then just, you know, just loss, you know, his father passed away, my mom passed away, my younger brother passed away, and a lot of these things happen, you know,
before gigs,
before a big event, or they happen.
You're going to the airport, like,
and you're told this has happened.
She didn't bury her brother because
I couldn't go and bury my brother.
We had to fly out.
We had to fly out. My mom passed away when we had no money, and you know, like you said, there's these things where people see newspapers and stuff and think because you're in a newspaper that all of a sudden there's millions of dollars that come with that article. And we've never purported to have this sort of, you know what I mean? But anyway, it's just what people think. So you go through a lot of that. And like, just, I think going back to something you asked earlier on, why, you know, people's perceptions and, you know, moving into a tent, do we care? You know, what did you think? Were you worried? When you go through a lot of these things, which everyone else goes through, really, but when you go through it, especially, you know, being married to a public personality, and you realize sometimes 2 things. You realize the fickleness of media, the fickleness, because people love you when they love you and they hate you when they hate you.
Yeah.
They'll love you today and hate you tomorrow. And if you understand that, it's not a terrible thing. It's just humanity.
It's the way it is.
It's just the way it is. So I've got we don't hate it. It's just humanity. So if you understand that, you understand what's important. So when we went through all these things, a lot of people in our lives came out who showed that, you know, people who cared about us and people who were there for us, and those were not. Those we expected to be, and they were not, but it's okay. So when you go through all of that, you realize, in the face of death, do you really care whether someone thinks you're staying in a mansion? And this is for us, and forgive me, I'm saying it for us. It doesn't matter to us what people would think. Do you know, Rwadza, when people do say, it's painful, like anyone, we're human. But it doesn't really matter. It has never defined our actions. So I think that's the reason why sometimes what we do seems so unconventional and so out there. It's just really doing the things we really want to do and the things that make us happy. We would rather buy flights to go, you know, go to Malaysia and go to a temple and see a different culture and experience food. Carl and I love food, guys. Hey. You know what I mean? Like, we would rather spend more money experiencing different food and things like that
than someone thinking your house is dope.
Guys, doesn't the fact that now, you know, you can't share all these things with people, you only have each other to share the struggles with, doesn't that put pressure on your marriage? Because I think sometimes, like you're rightly saying, you do need another ear to like vent out to. But if you only have each other, doesn't that put pressure on your marriage?
Yeah,
I think one of the things that we're learning more and more about marriage, like in recent days, not recent days, but in recent times, is that you have such a perfect opportunity to redefine what family is. And it's family to us is now by choice. We choose if you qualify,
Right.
And family to us is not by blood. So in a lot of cases, sometimes we have encountered some unusual sources of people that have been a great support to us. People that have become parents to us. People have become, the nieces and nephews who are literally like our kids. We've been so amazed that there's been this wealth of people, and like even now, Nelsy and I we're busy recruiting married couples because we're like, what we love about married couples is the realness of the relationship. It's not like before exactly. No, because there's people when they are dating. The things they worry about, the things they are concerned about. They literally like dress up to go to someone's house. I mean, who does that? Come on.
We don't even dress up. We got pajamas down under. We just wore my t-shirts.
No, but there's like a lack of honesty in dating. And the honesty comes a lot in marriage, especially when we have couples come for dinner and we're open about the things we're going through. And we found that the more we're open about the bad things, the more we seem to attract people who identify and resonate with that. And so it's not, we're not pretending to each other. It's not one of those scenarios. I remember even we've been trying to change our circle as well, because I've been saying if you cannot make 3 phone calls to solve your problems, then you need to change your circle. If you can't call 3 people and solve a problem, then your circle is wrong. Because we've got friends, right? We've got some white friends who are like, oh, there's a property that's just gone on the market. Let me call Greg. I think he might be. Hey, Greg. And then Greg will be like, yeah, sure. I've got like 20,000 in savings I can put towards that. Are you guys okay? Sorry, I wish it was more. And then they call a second person. Like, you know what? I don't have any more, but I can sell the boat. I've been meaning to sell the boat, guys.
And then you also want to be person. And you also want to be that person who can be there for your people.
Yeah. So having said that, if you can't call 3 people to fix a problem, you have the wrong circle, or you need to build that circle. So you need to build each other to be better, because we don't want any of our kids, guys, to struggle because we didn't up our game.
That's so good.
It should just be that simple. It should be that simple that someone can call Uncle Carl and not have to ask, but Uncle Carl, you've done a TED Talk. How come you can't even buy me a plane ticket to go somewhere? That's embarrassing. And so those are the things that I love about talking to other couples, is that we start talking about these things, about why don't we go on holiday often? Is it that we can't save? Is that, those kind of things? Or why aren't we investing in each other? Couples will say, I hate working with my spouse because we always fight. If your wife is a douchebag or the husband is a douchebag, you're going to learn to be better douchebags to each other. And so it doesn't mean just because I work with my wife that we get along. No. We don't. We fight.
He's a horrible boss. Yeah, not all the time, but
sometimes I even have to say, listen, I am the freaking CEO here. What the hell is wrong here? Just because you're in charge of finances doesn't mean kuti.
And sometimes I throw out my chest. I'm like, I'm your wife. God damn it. No, but
guys.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh, Sha, you know what? I would love to just continue talking. This has been so good. It's been so good. You know what? This has, combined with all those other glitches, this has been the longest conversation we've actually ever had.
We are talkative. We don't stop.
That's all right.
No, you are. But it's been so good, though. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. And
No,
no, thank
we
you.
considered ourselves recruited in your circles because now I'm just gonna say, hey, there's a problem. Let's just call Uncle Carl.
Thank you.
Sell the
Yes.
bus.
I'll be like, I've got 10,000 square meters. I think I have available. Do you guys want to
Come
put
on
that there? Sorry, I wish I could do more.
Oh yeah, guys. No, thank you, Carl and
Thank you so
Nelsy.
much,
We
guys.
appreciate you guys.
No,
for
thank you,
having
guys.
us. Thank you so much.
Sharing your story with us. You know, it's been fantastic. It's been really, really amazing, and we've learned so much. You know, through your
thank
experiences and through the things that you've learned. So I will definitely make a plan to see. Now we've got a place to go when we get to Victoria. So now we can just say, Vic Falls, we're coming. We're
Thank
on
you
our
very
way to
much.
Vic Falls.
Exactly.
So guys, thank you so much.
Thank you so much
No,
for
thank you
having
so
us,
much, guys.
guys.
Thanks.
Good
Have a
night.
wonderful evening.
Okay, good night, guys.
All right,
Bye bye. Yo, it
Wow. That was long, but that was
was very good.
very good.
Yeah,
Very
no,
good.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I don't think there's anything else to add. I'm
Yeah.
sorry we've gone so long, but I know it was worth it. I think it was. Yeah, you know, we've had a really good conversation. It was so good. We learned so many things today. And I can see from all the different comments that have been coming through, of all the different points that have been there. Sam, Shitalkira, thank you so much. Sam and Wazi, we love you guys. Thank you for still sticking with us even through all the disruptions. So, but we've had a great time, guys. Thank you so much. We will look forward to another conversation, another marriage conversation again, same time next week. And yeah, it's been good. So remember to share the broadcast. We will also try and make a plan because I know a lot of people wanted to watch, but couldn't.
With the
But
disruptions,
yeah, but we'll make a plan to make it available for everybody. But thank you for sticking with us. It's been a fantastic show. It's been a great time. My name is Simba,
And I'm Ivy.
or you can call us Mr. and Mrs. And remember,
Keep on loving.
keep on loving. Good night. Bye bye.